And I should say good afternoon now. It is the Nikki Maduro Show, and I'm Kim McAllister. And thank you for being here, even though Nikki is not today. Of course, today, kind of exciting change of the times, I would say. Today is Nikki's very first, sorry, my shot's all weird. Today is Nikki's, you can see the cord up here somewhere. There you go. Today is Nikki's very first day at KCBS. So she is training to do part-time fill-in work there. Of course, this show will carry on. We will still be doing it. Sometimes I'll be doing it alone. Sometimes she'll be doing it with me. Sometimes maybe she'll be doing it alone. Who knows? But we have to do what we have to do to make things work. And we want to keep the show going. It's truly a labor of love, as we're able to talk about the stories of the day and still hang out with you and just be here for each other and spend a couple hours together every day. So thank you for being here. I can see you guys were waiting. I'm so sorry I was late. It takes me a second to get everything all set up and situated. I have sent a few interview requests out, so we'll see who pops in. Johnny Steele was talking about coming by today, and Guy Obelam. Royal Oaks, too, may come in to talk a little bit about some things. What I wanted to open with, though, because I don't know if you guys, I know we were talking about it on the Mark Thompson show, but wow. I mean, this is something. This whole secret police situation. Let me tell you the story. This is China allegations that China opened a secret police station in New York City. This, according to federal officials who are announcing charges against now 3 Chinese suspects. Earlier it was 2, but now it's 3. Officials say the Chinese government was using the station to track down and intimidate dissidents and activists. The top federal prosecutor said the station was right in the heart of New York City in Manhattan's Chinatown. The FBI says the accused destroyed important cell phone material right before the arrests went down, trying to, get rid of the evidence. But I guess maybe this type of thing goes on and I'm just blissfully unaware of it. But I can't even, I mean, wow. I guess I'm floored by you know, the I said earlier cojones by that, and that's what I mean by the stones it took for them to do that right here in the United States. This is just crazy. Yeah, Liz writing, and thank you, because I definitely will rely on you guys in the chat today for this conversation. What other countries have secret police stations here? I'm sure China is not alone. Scary situation. I mean, you see it in movies, right? Like the spy movies. The United States has little offices, CIA offices where they interrogate people from place to place. I'm sure that's movies, not reality, but I'm sure there are some places like that around the world. I'm telling you. I bet Russia does, says John Smith. I don't know. If that was found out, I think they'd be in a heck of a lot of trouble. That there was a place like this that was run by the Chinese and that they were actually caught and arrests were made. I wonder if there's some type of, when you're a diplomat, you get immunity. If they had given these people diplomatic immunity, or how that works out, how you prove it was a secret police station and what they were actually doing there. If there's documentation or how they even knew about it. I'm really looking forward to seeing what else comes out about all this. Lori says I thought the FBI has a unit for this type of thing. I didn't know, Lori, if they do. That's cool. From Square, operating from the dry cleaner storefront, man from Uncle. Huge in Japan writes, Russia has a longer time to perfect not getting caught. John Smith says FBI China USA unit. Yeah, and according to Mario, if they can have a secret police station in New York, they are definitely spying through TikTok, right? I mean, that seemed far-fetched until we found the Chinese police had their own police station right in Manhattan. Wow. Just crazy. Grady says, Gil C, great idea for lunch. Oh, you guys having lunch without me? Okay, that's fine. I can't talk and eat at the same time. Nikki makes it work, but yeah, I have a hard time with it. So yeah, Jammer DC writing, these people are undoubtedly non-official cover, or they would have been tracked by the consular services. The FBI does have a group for this. I bet it's one of those things where if you're caught, it never happened. You're not with us. We don't know who you are, right? So if they're that they are caught, not if that they have been caught, I bet the general line is, we know nothing. We know nothing. We're not with China. We don't know. China says we don't know these people, right? I mean, wow. I bet you a movie's made about this though. This type of thing. Crazy. Beth Farmer says, check out San Francisco Chinatown. Yeah, I'm sure they're looking at all Chinatowns right now. Maybe the embassy gives them intel on who to track. I'm sure they know who to track, you know. But that's the thing. You think that once you make your way to America, you step foot on soil that is free. You're able to say what you want. You're able to think what you want and express those thoughts. And then they know who you are and they're coming after you. And what are the Chinese police going to do here? Are they going to try to take you out? Like as in off you? Are they going to put a bag over your head and smuggle you back to China in some way? Are they going to just harass you? What's the point of having them here? I don't understand what they're going to do once they find you. Are they just keeping tabs on you? If you say something really outrageous, that's when they're going to come and get you. Get them out of here. Unacceptable. John Smith says, oh, did they have a secret donut shop too? John Smith says, maybe they're making balloons at the police station, right? Flo says, what the heck goes on in these secret police stations? It's crazy. Are they renting from Trump at a very, very high price? Maybe Trump gave him the office space for free, allegedly. John Smith says, I bet Saudi Arabia has a police force in the US thanks to Bush and Trump. Jim says, they tell you how your family in China will suffer. I bet that's true, unfortunately. I bet they use everything they can against you to get you to, shut it, right? All the above, right? Scary. Frightening and scary to me that has happened right in America. I mean, maybe it's uncovering something that's going on all the time. And again, maybe it's just my extreme naivete in feeling like once you get to America, those things don't happen. But wow. Yeah. They are these at least 2 suspects, maybe 3, facing charges for allegedly operating a secret police station in New York City. Yeah, they're trying to intimidate people. So, yeah. Another story out today, if you want to talk about this one, there is an appeals court that is upholding a former Minneapolis police officer, Derek Chauvin's conviction for George Floyd's murder. So he had tried to appeal the conviction. The appeals court says no. Chauvin claimed he was unable to get a fair trial due to media coverage and the threat of protests. The Minnesota Court of Appeals today rejecting that argument, upholding his sentence of 22 years for the killing of George Floyd. There was a lot of media coverage surrounding this trial. There were protests all over the place. Those 2 things are not true. But I feel like it doesn't take away from what he did. It's captured on video. It's not really even a question. The guilt. The fair trial? Could he get a fair trial? You did it. I mean, you did it. 22 years doesn't seem like long enough, honestly. I don't know. Speaking of shootings and violence, they're asking for peace now in Louisville. It's a violent weekend. There were several shootings across the city. One in a place called Chickasaw Park on Saturday night rather. 2 people dead, 4 others injured. A man died in a shooting yesterday morning. 4 shootings causing injuries Friday night. Just this rash of gun violence. And we've seen it in the Bay Area. I remember going into the newsroom on Monday and the top story was a rash of gun violence in the East Bay, or, several people dead in several shootings in Oakland. And I guess at what point does it become acceptable where we just go, yep, okay, more gun violence? And lawmakers are asking for peace in Louisville. There shouldn't be peace. There should be people protesting all this. There should be people asking for common sense gun laws. These are violent things happening in their community. I guess at what point do we get frustrated enough, able to feel like we're not ready to tolerate any more gun violence till we finally, as a society, say, that's enough. That's enough. We're done. I'm waiting for that day. I don't know how many more people have to die in order for that day to arrive. Did you see this story that Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is launching his run for the Democratic nomination for president? He's doing it in Boston this week. His name is Kennedy, but I don't know if he really fits the whole Kennedy profile. He's announcing he'll make a formal announcement Wednesday saying he is the only person who can bridge the divide and fix the country. But CNN is reporting the Kennedy family is backing President Biden over the environmentalist and longtime anti-vaccine activists. And that's the thing about him. He holds some pretty interesting views, you could say. And I mean, everyone has their own opinion, and that's fine. But I don't necessarily know that we want to elect an anti-vaxxer, that's the best thing, the best message to send to public health, for public health in this country. So, yeah, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., we'll see what happens with him. His name is nice. The rest, maybe not so much. I don't know if you're following sports. The NHL playoffs are tonight. So that's exciting. The Islanders are in Raleigh playing the Hurricanes, and the Bruins are welcoming the Panthers. So the NHL playoffs underway. I always like to see when they get the big trophy at the end. And speaking of sports, and Mark talked a little bit about this, it's the Boston Marathon men's and women's winners, both from Kenya this year. Evans Chebet won in 2 hours and 5 minutes, 54 seconds. The women's division winner was Helen Obiri. She had a time of 2 hours, 21 minutes, 38 seconds. These people are amazing. The winners of these races, the way they are able to just push themselves and get this done. I mean, I imagine they train so hard and do this so often, run these marathons so often, that for them, it becomes normal to their body. I can't even imagine the way your body would feel after a marathon. I know people do it. There are moms that I see at my kids' school that are always posting pictures of, ran this marathon, ran that marathon. There are people who they're runners. Like their body is made to do that. My body is not made to do that. Absolutely. Let's see what you're saying over here in the chat. Oh, Cheryl. Yeah, everyone has at least one weirdo in the family referring to Kennedy, right? Karen writes, is Kennedy using anti-vax as a political advantage in his mind, or does he really think he's protecting the health of the public? I mean, I would imagine if you really believe that vaccines are wrong, and you would think that you're protecting people, right? I don't know. Eric writes, he's sort of a progressive apart from the anti-vax. I mentally shut him off as soon as he goes into his anti-vax shtick. That's what I think. Yeah. Square says, if Kennedy doesn't fit the profile, he'll probably not fear the same outcomes. Let's hope not. Yeah. Let's hope not. Don't want anything bad to happen to anybody. Flo also writes, I would like to see a rash of solutions and legislation to the plethora of guns and violence. I would as well. I really would. Thank you for helping me carry on the conversation, you guys. I really appreciate that. There's a lot to talk about today. There's a lot of news coming out today. Did you see this? And I mentioned it earlier on Mark's show. This is wild. Speaking of violence over the weekend, there were hundreds of teenagers that came out and took over downtown Chicago. There were several videos posted on social media. These teenagers are seen setting cars on fire, terrorizing bystanders. Police are trying to gain control of the situation in the videos. Apparently, 2 teenagers were wounded after some shots were fired. Several, by whom, I don't know. Several others needed treatment at hospitals. What is happening? You wonder why. Like, what is, I know it's easy, the whole riot thing. it's easy to once it starts and touches off, then it's, it kind of has a life of its own. But, I was trying to get a picture here for you guys. But this is just, crazy with hundreds and hundreds of teens doing this. Oh, I typed in CHI, and you know what I found in my computer? A picture of a chihuahua, not a picture of the riots in Chicago. There he is, Chai. That's what I get when I type in Chai. But yeah, so this is a crazy situation, and you wonder, why are these teens so angry? Here's the picture of the Chicago situation. It's not the chihuahua, I promise. Why are these kids so upset? I mean, was it just a thing to do? Is that what it was? Was it just, might as well? I don't know. The teenagers, according to Karen, learn from their elders. Maybe. I don't know. Devil's Night comes early this year, writes Huge in Japan. Something. I just don't know why. Yeah, that doggy is cute. Thanks, Flo. I don't know why, but this is just a wild situation. I mean, that's what instead they're not going to the movies, these teens, on a Friday night. No, they're going to go set some cars on fire. Really? Cause some mayhem. Wow. Let's hope that's not the new thing to do. Absolutely outrageous. And then you've got the police out there, and then you've got shots fired. What an absolute mess. It's just wow. So yeah. So we might have some guests coming by today, and that'll be exciting. But until then, let's talk about this George Santos. Another story from George Santos today. He is slated to announce his re-election bid. He is absolutely no shame. No shame at all. No, none. He's going to try to run for re-election now. Doesn't matter that he was caught in lies 6 ways from Sunday. Now he's going to try again. That's right. So George Santos is slated to announce his re-election bid today. This despite multiple calls, of course, for his resignation from both sides of the aisle and an ongoing investigation by the House Ethics Committee over false claims about his background, about his business. Other candidates from both parties are reportedly lined up to challenge Santos. If he wins, uh, if he wins his re-election bid, how embarrassing for that district. Really, and the voters there. Saying that you really don't care who represents you. I don't think there's any way he can win. I mean, I would say that, but I really didn't think there was any way Trump could get elected. So I guess I kind of have to temper my I really don't think situations anymore. But I have a hard time believing that he is actually running for reelection. Maybe he thinks it's like saying, well, if I don't run for reelection, it's like admitting that I'm embarrassed of my behavior, or it's somehow admitting wrongdoing, right? But if I do run for reelection, it's like saying all this stuff doesn't matter. Then I can go on with life as if I've done nothing wrong. There's nothing to see here. Move along. I just I guess if I had been caught up in those type of lies, I would be mortified. And I would probably want to hide under my covers and never show my face again. So that he has the audacity to be like, not only am I not resigning, I'm running for reelection, is wild to me. Floyd's Key says this guy's a complete nutcase. Huge in Japan says he should go to Florida. Yeah. Santos says Square has a very low opinion of the US public. We're all fools. Isn't that the truth? Eric says the only way Santos can win is if he lies about his name on the ballot. That's a good one. Karen says he learned from Trump. Yeah. Another chapter in the George Santos reality show. Anything is possible these days. That's the scary part, Flo. That's the scary part. Trevor and Concord said Santos already won 7 times in a row. Okay. Neman says he has no sense. Yeah, I guess so. I mean, a sense of what's right and wrong, perhaps. How you tell that many egregious lies to the public to get elected, or just to make yourself seem like you're more than you are, and then you aren't feeling bad about it at all, or feeling like and I believe I saw it was an interview done, I want to say it was a French interview, where he actually said, yeah, I did, I lied. I did. Maybe people will take pity on him and say, well, he was honest about it, at least after the fact. What do they say? And I know I quote this a lot, but America gets the America it deserves. The people of his district get the representative they deserve. If they want to vote for a liar and someone who's out for himself and someone who's not to be trusted, then that's the person they deserve, I guess. I don't I just have a hard time thinking that anybody would actually vote for him. I wouldn't. I would be calling if I was in his district, I'd be outraged. Jammer DC says it's the Trump playbook. Keep lying more, keep running for office so that it's harder to hold you accountable. Just the opposite of everything I would think, but you're right. Jammer DC. You're right. Jammer DJC. I'm sorry, Jammer DJC. Such obvious out there lies. Why? Says Karen. He said in an interview that he was embarrassed that he hadn't achieved what he thought he should, or that people wouldn't think that he was good enough. And so that's why he lied about some things. Flo says Obi-Wan Kenobi aptly asked, who's more foolish, the fool or the one who follows him? This may apply here. It's true. When Star Wars applies to real life, right? Yeah, I got it. I knew you meant Kenobi. After he gets caught, he admits he lied. Right. Karen says, is he merely a compulsive liar? Can't help himself? Seems like it. I don't know. But that doesn't okay, I was going to say that doesn't work when you're in Congress, but then some would argue that they are all compulsive liars. So I don't know. I would like to think that's not true. I would like to think that there are some there that are, telling the truth, that are working hard for their constituents, etc. Vilma says, I don't believe George Santos his re-election bid. He's using his re-election committee to raise his name, most probably. I kind of get what you mean there. Yeah. Santos reminds me of the comedian John Lovett, but John Lovett is so much more respectable. Huge in Japan says Star Wars is life, indeed. Vilma, Santos is going to portray himself as a victim in his re-election bid, a victim of the media and not of his lies. I don't know. I mean, I would think all his opponents need to do is get that video, re-rack it and roll it of him saying, yeah, I lied. My bad. I'm sorry. Right? That's all they need to say. Luis says, liar, in it for himself, sociopath. Sounds like Trump. America gets what America deserves. The problem with that is, and yes, America gets what America deserves, right? The problem I guess I have is that there are some of us who don't deserve it. There really are some of us who don't deserve a Trump presidency. There really are some of us who do deserve to have freedom of choice. There really are some of us who deserve their representatives not to be Pinocchio. There really are. So, in this case, why does the majority wreck it for the other people? No bueno, man. I call foul. Velma says Santos is. Oh, wait, I already read that one. My bad. I'm sorry. Trevor and Concord liars just assume that everyone will believe them. And C. Jason says, I think it's as simple, only as deep as the Roy Cohn advice. Never admit anything, ever, period. That's the train Donnie is on. That's what they do, too. Never admit anything. Never say you're sorry. Never admit you're wrong. Never. And see, those are the people I don't like. If you've all had someone that you worked with, right? That person who screws up and doesn't ever admit it, who makes a mistake and then tries to explain it away by saying, well, that's the way we do it, or that's the way it's always been done, or this is and it's not, they've messed up. You would like the person so much more if they said, you know what? I am so sorry. I completely messed that up. I remember there was an engineer at KGO who would, it's from time to time, everyone makes mistakes. It's just the way of life, right? And something would go wrong and they would say, either not say anything or say, oh, well, it came from management, or invent some wild excuse as to why the mistake was made, when the easiest thing to do was just to say, I'm sorry, that was an error. I'm sorry, let's move on. No big deal. You make a mistake, you move on. But I tend to like the person who can admit fault. And that's what I'm trying to teach my son to do. He has the worst time with this, admitting fault and saying, "Yes, I did this," instead of trying to explain it away so he doesn't get in trouble for it. If you did it, own it, right? If you made a mistake, own your mistake. If that's what happened, just say, "Yes, I have failed. I have done something in error, and I will try my very best not to do it again." And I like you more for owning it, for saying, "Yep, yeah, that was me. My mistake." No. Uh, but I don't like the people who don't admit to it. I tend to feel like, ugh, you know, they're one of those. Uh, right. Eric says, sorry, I think I'm missing some of this. Never explains, never apologizes, never admits they're wrong. Don't like it. Lori writes, his role model is raising money this way. Of course, he's going to emulate him. This is the truth. Does anybody know of an example of the past of someone in the USA who never admitted they were wrong and finally held to account? Oh, that's a really good question, Daniel. Anyone in the past in USA politics who never admitted they were wrong and were finally held to account? No, because even I should have John Rothman on. Even Nixon finally said, you know, didn't he finally admit fault at the end? My dog ate it. Right, those people, the my dog ate it people. Telling you. Is there a Liar movie? The Liar movie for your son with Robin Williams. Oh, I'll have to check that out. Yeah. We talk a lot about um he tells sometimes tall tales. So we talk a lot about The Boy Who Cried Wolf. We talk a lot about if you lie, people won't believe you. And then when you're telling the truth, they won't believe you, right? And then about just being able to be the person that is the bigger person that can admit when they're wrong. Vilma says it's very simple why he got elected. He lied often, everywhere, and his constituents believed his lies were the truth. But Vilma, now that they know he's liar, liar, pants on fire, do they vote for him? If they do, I lose respect. Huge in Japan writes, admitting fault is a strength, not a weakness. I completely agree with you. But, and I'll say this for the whole Trump philosophy of never admit you're wrong, never say you're sorry. The never admitting you're wrong, never say you're sorry seems to have bought him some leeway when it comes to all the things he's done wrong and the crimes allegedly committed, right? So if you never admit it, you never apologize for it, then maybe you never have to pay the price. Is that why? I mean, maybe that's why it seems like that seems to be the case. I would rather pay the price as I make the mistake rather than have them all catch up to me at once, as that he's seeing former President Trump is seeing now. And now he wants a cooling off period. Right. I mean, yeah, say you admit it as it happens. I've done this thing, but then I'm not going to be doing things like he's been doing, right? I don't know. What is the difference, writes Harry, between Trump and Santos? Nothing. They both have the same level of integrity. One could argue that one is following the other's example. Santos has no shame. That's what I'm saying. Yeah. Karen says, I try to instill in my son that when he apologizes for something, it implies that you will try not to do it again. Right. And I think that's there's a certain amount of not embarrassment to an apology, but I guess embarrassment is the case where you have to admit something you feel a little bit of shame for when you're saying, I'm sorry, right? Because you've wronged someone or done something wrong. But it's when you feel that shame. Like, shame is not a bad thing necessarily. Shaming people is not something I'm into. But when a person feels shame for doing something wrong that they feel themselves, right? That is an impetus not to repeat the same shameful mistake again. There's something to that. I believe you, Karen. Uh, Senator McCarthy. Senator McCarthy, is that what you're saying as far as someone who was never held to account? Never said I'm sorry and never held to account? Square says it's easier to ask for forgiveness than permission. That's the truth. I hope not, Mario. God, I hope not. That Trump normalized being openly dishonest. I hope we don't see like a whole generation of people who are the I don't apologize. I don't admit wrongdoing. I just am who I am and like it or leave it, love it or leave it kind of people. Mm. Uh, Trevor says to accept a pardon, you have to admit that you're guilty, I think. I don't know if that's true or not. Vilma writing, Santos feels very comfortable right now. He has the crazy five in Congress that are supporting him. Don't you think if those the five are supporting you, you might be like, well, what's wrong with me? If those are my supporters, right? Yeah, C. Jason says, dang Mario, we've dang you for being right. I hope you're not right. I hope that's not the new way. I don't want that to be the new way. I'm going to try something here. You know how in the past uh iterations we've had phone calls, right? You guys have to bear with me and do it slowly. But if you have a comment that you want to make in person, this is this is on the fly. This is just trying something. So you can't all do it at once. Try to do one at a time perhaps. I'm going to post the link to the show. If you go into a web browser and type in the link, then you can appear with me on the show. So this is about you being a caller like we used to do on the radio. All right, I'm doing it. There's the link. So if you want to come on, say a comment rather than just in the chat, and I know not everybody wants to appear, you can use a picture, you can just have a blank space, but we'll be able to hear your voice. And please keep it clean and nice. You know how I roll, respectful. I'm very, very happy to welcome you on the show as a caller or a guest. So let's have that. Luis says it's not even about right versus left, Republican versus Democrat. I didn't agree with a lot of his policies, but I completely respected John McCain. I miss that guy. Different era of politics. Holding politicians to a higher standard, at least on the surface. Who knows what was going on behind closed doors, right? But at least the image that you present to voters is one of that is a unique link to today's show, Eric. They're unique every day. At least though, there was I guess a veneer, a sheen of being a good guy, right? Of being up and I don't know, want to say upfront with people, of being somebody that we could rely on. I don't know. Lindsey Graham is also a no backbone, switching lies too many times, we could say. Okay, you guys don't want to come on with me. All right, I get it. This is what I was suggesting last week. Have viewers as guests as co-hosts. That's what gave me the idea. That's right. This would be great with more notice. You don't have to appear on the screen though. You don't have to have your face on, because when you log in, you can do block camera. So it just is like the gray, mysterious figure, but we can hear your voice. So, and that's the thing, Lori, with call-in radio. There was never a notice. If you had something to say, you called in and said it. So call in and say it. I gave you the link. It's right back up there in the chat. Let's do it. John McCain was a man of integrity. Yeah. You knew where he stood and he'd reach across the aisle. I'm sure not always. I mean, I'm sure there are things behind the scenes where they're making deals, they're dishonesty, they're, kind of exploiting bad things about each other in order to get deals done. I guess I'm thinking of House of Cards, like how politics really works, right? John McCain was a great man in a horrible party. Vilma says John McCain had honesty, courage, and character. I disagreed with him, but I respected him. That's the thing about now, is that now you can't disagree with someone and respect them, because the way in which their cases are made, or the way in which we disagree with each other, gets so ugly that then there's no way to circle back around and respect each other's differences. So that's a problem. Well, maybe you're right, Lori. Maybe I do need to give more notice to people, or maybe people are just too shy to come on the show. I'll post the link one more time. But if you do want to be a caller or a guest on the show, then you can. There's the link. Murphy says, not prepared today. I'm listening while I'm finishing payroll, but I have to get my numbers right. Oh, I hope I'm not screwing up your numbers. Don't Don't start counting. 3, 2, 1. I won't do it to you. Thanks, Murphy, for listening while you're working. We appreciate it. Lori says, I need to gear myself up for this. No, you don't. Just come on. There's no gearing up. Just come and tell me what you think. Mm-mm. We're all friends here. We're all community in the chat. John writes, that's how John McCain's daughter, Lindsay, is pretty honest on her actions. Do you mean Megan or Lindsay? I don't know. Megan McCain, the one that was on The View? I'm not sure which one you mean. Anyway. Yeah. Okay, so it's very interesting, this whole thing of Santos running for re-election. I'm very interested to see if he'll actually get reelected. I have great hope that the people will actually do what's right and toss him out on his rear end. But I've been disappointed so badly before that I don't know. I don't know. Another story to talk about today is the Florida lawmakers now. They are trying to find out in the next election what their constituents think of this new abortion law. That's the one they had where it would be illegal after 6 weeks. At 6 weeks, a lot of people don't realize they're pregnant. And so, what kind of law is that? Governor Ron DeSantis saying last week that he signed this bill banning most abortions after 6 weeks. Republican Senator Marco Rubio telling Fox News this weekend many of the state's lawmakers were elected on a pro-life platform. So again, America gets the America it deserves. That's what the people wanted there. Okay. They say the voters will be the ones to decide if 6 weeks is too restrictive. What will the voters say? I mean, I'd like to think that these are the votes that will bring people out, that will bring people out to say this is what we want, right? Because when they say voter apathy, it's hard to get people to the polls unless there's some type of issue that they're wedded to or that moves them to finally come out and vote. And maybe this is the issue. Maybe we see Florida women coming out in droves to say, we don't want this. I don't know. It's yeah. It's something that I'm following closely because it's an issue that it's kind of my hot button issue. If I look at a candidate and they're not for choice, then I am not for them. So I hope women, like in Wisconsin with the state Supreme Court justice, come out and make those statements, take that time to vote, to say what's important to them. I hope that this is an issue that moves them. So I just I don't know. The whole abortion issue, I'm very frustrated by it. It's something that kind of weighs heavily on me as more of our rights are taken away. The TikTok thing, we talked about TikTok earlier, about if they can have a secret police station in New York, then TikTok is definitely spying. So there's this new TikTok challenge. These challenges really bad for kids. This one killed an Ohio teenager. It was a 13-year-old Jacob Stevens who took about a dozen Benadryl pills, intending to experience hallucinations mentioned on TikTok, but instead he suffered a fatal overdose. Family members telling a TV station the teen was being filmed by his friends when he started having seizures, had to be rushed to the hospital. The boy's parents say he was placed on a ventilator for about a week before he passed away last Wednesday. So it's a TikTok challenge that involves taking over the counter medication so that you then get to a point where you hallucinate. Talk to your kids. If they're on TikTok, if they're on media, that's the thing. I think a lot of parents don't realize what kids are looking at. We set up these rules. We say we don't want you to do certain things, and then we don't monitor what you're looking at. There was a case at my daughter's school where these boys were getting really, really mean to the girls in the class. This is 8th grade. Calling them fat, saying bad things about people, being racist, very racist. It's Sonoma County. I mean, 2023. And they're saying these things that would boggle the mind. Turns out, apparently, the boys were watching Andrew Tate, which is he's a, I don't even want to say conservative commentator. I'll say disgusting human being who talks about misogynist things and is racist and spews these things, and these kids are watching, and the parents don't even realize. And then I think that's the thing is your kids can watch this stuff, start thinking this way, and you don't realize you don't have a chance to correct it before they've, gone down this internet rabbit hole, and all of a sudden they have all these thoughts and ideas, and so hard to go back. And you want to think that kids' brains are ready to say, well, that doesn't sound right to me. Well, that's not a nice thing to say about people. Well, I don't believe that. But they get into watching this stuff. I think we don't, we collectively as parents don't really watch enough what our kids are looking at on the internet. We say, all right, you can have this app. All right, you can use it this way. And then we don't look again. We don't circle back, right? Okay, you can use the iPad for a half an hour. Then do you go back and look at the history of what they checked or what they're looking at? These are the things you have to. You have to look, because you got to catch it early if they're looking at stuff like that. It's really gross. Let's look at what you have to say in the chat. The girls bully each other too. It's not just a boy versus girl thing. Oh, you're right. It's true. I'm just talking about this one instance, but you're right. There's racism everywhere. Doesn't matter what county or city you're in. That's sad. I mean, I agree with you. It is everywhere, sadly. Um, I guess I like to live in my California bubble. I like to think in my Bay Area bubble that we're nicer, that we're on a higher plane mentally, that we know these things are wrong. But then you see stories about, people of color having their homes appraised at a lower value, and then they put pictures of white families in, and they are appraised at a higher value, and it happens here in the Bay Area. So there goes my bubble, pop it. Mario says TikTok is manipulating our youth to act foolishly. It's true. This is what I wonder, Flo. Don't the ones making these anti-abortion laws have mothers, daughters, sisters, friends they care about who may need or may want a procedure? Do they care about their rights and their health? One wonders. I saw someone over the weekend talking about, well, you should promote just not having sex. You want to promote something. Tell people if they're abstinent, they don't ever have to worry about it. The problem is that you can promote abstinence till you're blue in the face, but it's just not realistic. It just isn't. And so when you deal with what is real versus what is not real, then you start coming up with solutions to problems. No one says, I believe, this is my belief. No one says, I'd really like to have an abortion in my life. That's really what I want to do. Someday I hope I get to have one of those. No, it's not something you want to do. It's not something you seek, you set out to get pregnant and have an abortion. No. It's what happens when there's an accident, because the reality is that people are going to have sex and they're going to do it when they're drunk, or they're going to do it in a violent way, sadly, or they're going to do it where they don't have protection because it's the heat of the passionate moment, or there's going to be an accident where your birth control fails, or whatever it may be. But it's a backup plan. Nobody sets out to do it. But when you have to have a choice, when you need that choice, you need them all. And that's just, telling it like it is on the, oh, look, I'm frozen in time. What a great shot. And that's just really talking about the, the accident part of it. That's not even when your health is in danger part of it, right? And then God help you if you live in a state where you're screwed. I'm telling you. Yeah, let's talk about, Nick says teens are especially vulnerable to the impulse of pursuing darkness. Their association with rebellion can take them to a place they otherwise would never consider. Scary stuff, Nick. Really is. Lori says they need to do parent information things in schools and after school programs, especially English as a second language parents who don't always understand that cartoons can be inappropriate. I used to do this. Maybe you should do it online, Lori. Maybe you should come on and do a little whatnot, and we can put it out on YouTube so it's available to people because I don't think a lot of people know. Yeah. Natalie's talking about the Antioch Police Department, a stone's throw away, like 1960 Mississippi. There's a lot still to come out about what happened there. It's frightening. I agree with you, Natalie. Really is. At least what we're hearing is, right? Eric says, Flo, those lawmakers will never deny their loved ones abortions. They'll always be able to get one. I think you're right, Eric. I think you are. Because if you have money, if you have influence, if you can go somewhere, then you will make it accessible to people that you love. It's just taking it away from everybody else. Oh, the hypocrisy. Really crazy. Boebert was proud of her state's teen pregnancy rate. Yes, Karen, contraceptives are not 100%. It's true. And where are the men in all this? I'm going to say something that might be controversial, which is I think, you know how everyone always says women are the only people that have a right to talk about abortion or about what happens with the woman's body? I think men should have an opinion too. I really do. I don't feel like men should just, when we're talking about the repopulation of society and having babies that you have to pay for eventually, I don't think that your opinions are invalid. I just think at the end of the day, when we get to the decision making period, that's my choice. That's a woman's choice about what happens with her body. So have an opinion. That's great. Talk about it. No? I mean, I don't think we should say that the opinion of men on the abortion issue is somehow invalid or unwarranted. We can all have the discussion as long as you realize it's a woman's body, and so, when push comes to shove, for another cliche there, that it's gonna be the woman's choice. That's it. And they should be, John. Men should equally be as pissed off about that, and I think many of them are. Yeah, I'm frozen again. I'm sorry, you guys. I was frozen in time. That's why it's just my picture. I don't think I only freeze on Nikki's show. I think I freeze on both of them. It may be that my computer, by the end of the third hour, has just kind of had it, and it's like, yeah, I know, I'm done. Unfortunately, to unfreeze myself, I have to leave and come back. I could do that if you guys prefer. But then there's nothing for you to talk about. Childbirth is not without health risks, particularly if you don't want the child. Mm. Jim writes, there's a good percentage of abortions for women over the age of 30 who already have a family and they just don't want to add another child. They can't because they live in the wrong state. Yeah, they can't now, right? That's true. As a matter of fact, a great number of people who end a pregnancy are women who are married and already have children. Maybe can't financially afford it, maybe find themselves in a bad predicament. That's true. So, Lori says, for the problem is for those who truly and deeply believe it's murder, there's no argument or rationalization. I, yes, I would like to think that those people who truly believe it's murder are few and far between. And I think maybe not few and far between, but are heavily outweighed by people that are more rational in thought. And I think studies show, even among those who are religious, that I think there was a study done in the Catholic Church that the majority of people favor a right to choose. So even people that are, being told in church it's wrong, still can think for themselves and realize, yeah, as Trevor said before, nobody's pro-abortion, we're pro-choice. That's right. Right wingers aren't pro-life, they're anti-choice. That's true. They don't want me to have a choice. Well, not me in general. I mean, my ship has sailed, but still. Can you imagine? God, getting pregnant at my age? Horrible. Flo, my grandmother was a nurse in the 40s and 50s and a bio teacher long before Roe v. Wade. The horror stories she told me that women went through before returning. Before then be returning now. Yeah, the back alley things, where you die of infection and horrible. Yeah. Yes, I want you to do that. I think that would be great. I think we would roll it on this show. Absolutely. It's important information, really important, talking about parents looking into what their kids are seeing online. Abstinence has worked out so well for Sarah Palin, writes Louise, Lauren Boebert, and many of the Taliban in America folks. Uh, yeah, right. It doesn't mean, though, Eric, that, you know, if your significant other was pregnant, that you wouldn't have an opinion on whether or not. I mean, you see some men just say, "Well, it's your choice, whatever you choose." But isn't it also helpful to know what your partner has to say about it? Like, do you want this child? Do you not want this child? I would think that would be taken into consideration in the decision-making process of the woman. Chris writes, "If Ruth Bader Ginsburg had retired, we would not have lost Roe." You may well be right on that, Chris, but, we can't go back in time and change that. And so, I don't know what the point is of beating her up for it is to say, except maybe the next Supreme Court justice who is faced with the same decision may look at what happened there and say, maybe I want to retire a little bit earlier while there's someone in office who can replace me with someone of like mind. Luis says, this is something I could do from home while on disability, and I don't have something to. Oh, Lori says, yeah, yeah. Oh, I forgot. Thank you, John. See, this is you guys are helping me out. Smash the thumbs up button with whatever you've got. I appreciate it. This would be wonderful if you would smash it with your iron rod or click the thumbs up button. I'll put the things up because it helps. It helps us to keep the show going. It helps the way that YouTube promotes the show. The more people that like it, the better we do. So that's it. And of course, it's a great time for me also to ask you to support the show if you can. I just appreciate you being here, honestly, and all your comments. So helpful. I love to keep the conversation going with you because really that's the whole point of the show is to have this community conversation. It was the point of KGO and it's the point of the Nikki Maduro show as well. But we also do need to be able to keep the show going. So you can find it, the Patreon link and the PayPal link. And of course, the YouTube stickers are open. But go to thenikkimaduroshow.com. By the way, you also find a lot of other cool stuff there. You can find the Nikki Maduro shop. You can also find the old shows and the links to the podcast if you listen via podcast. Easy way to just click through and find stuff like that. So we do appreciate it. And of course, some people listen on Facebook as well. So the Nikki Maduro show is on Facebook, and we appreciate you however you listen and however you are here. The super chat is live, so you can also financially support us this way, and we appreciate any support you can give. But we were talking, let me take that banner off. Thank you. We were talking, though, about Roe v. Wade. And yeah, Karen writes, I don't think any of us really thought it would ever be overturned. Even Ruth Bader Ginsburg, I think she knew, Karen. I think she knew that it wasn't based on the strongest law and so are the strongest thoughts. And so I think she would have preferred that abortion rights in America be based on something else. From what I've read, she knew that it wasn't the best way to affirm abortion rights in America. Nick says, unfortunately, it was never codified. The Democrats are to blame for that. They had numerous opportunities over the last 50 years. They chose cowardice and myopia instead. Joe says one conservative judge after another appointed. So, yeah, I don't know. Chris says teen sex is at all-time lows. Really? I don't know about that. Maybe you're right. Maybe it's at the studies that were done during COVID when they all had to stay away from each other. How about that? Hmm. I just feel like when you start thinking that way, you start not talking to kids about sex. You start saying, "Oh, abstinence is the only thing." You start having a real problem. That's when you see abortion rates go up, and nobody wants that, right? Like I said, nobody wants an abortion. Nobody goes into life expecting that that's the way their life's going to go. It just so happens that sometimes you need some help. That's the way it is. Yeah. So this whole situation with this FBI uh arrest of the Massachusetts Air National Guard member who posted classified military documents online, allegedly. They think this kid, this 21-year-old kid, has more documents, even. Could have posted some other stuff as well. His name is Jack Teixeira. He is charged with retaining and transmitting national defense information without authorization, and the investigation is continuing now. He is still in custody. He'll return to Boston Federal Court on Wednesday for a detention hearing. But it just goes to this whole thought of how are we as a country maintaining our secret documents? If something is stamped top secret, is it for a reason? I've heard it said that we overclassify, right? That everything that is marked top secret may not necessarily have deserved that designation. But, if it is, it is. If it gets the top secret stamp, it should be treated as such. And so I feel like you saw the whole Trump thing with the taking of all those documents and, putting in God knows where in several different locations. Other lawmakers, including Democrats, have been found not necessarily with the same, intent, maybe. Maybe they didn't intend to do it. Maybe it was an accident. I don't think for this kid, if you took it and then shared it online, you could say it was an accident. But I wonder what changes are coming. What changes you think should come in the way we maintain our documents? We have to do it differently. Otherwise, our state secrets are out there in the world, and there are secrets. Even if, as a member of the media, I think that we should have access to a lot more information. There definitely are some things going on in the world that we don't want to talk about. We don't want people to know. So, yeah. Let's see what you have to say. Beth writing, I'm sure the FBI will recover any documents from that kid's phone and laptop. Oh, I'm sure they're going through everything with a fine-tooth comb. Absolutely. Let's see what else. Not sure. Okay, that's a Roe v. Wade talk. Well, guess what, you guys? I have a surprise for you. Surprise, surprise. It's Johnny Steele, everybody. Welcome Johnny Steele to the program. Hi, Johnny Steele.
How do you do? How's
Hi.
happening?
I'm frozen in time. My video was frozen. Here's what it looks like when I undo my camera. I'm like looking up, just stopped in the world, and I have to go out and come back in order to unfreeze myself. So I'm just using my picture.
Oh, very cool. I had similar problems where, like, the computer I used just 2 weeks ago with you said, "Oh, we don't use that browser. We use a different one." I'm like, "We use
Oh
that."
God.
So then I go to my phone, and then it doesn't like it, and then turn off the phone. In the old days, you came down to the studio, you were hungover, sure. There were some donuts, you had some aspirin, you did the show, and there was a microphone and some engineer pressing buttons. Now,
right.
I don't know what the hell's going on.
Now, who knows what's going on? Now it's like videos freezing and yeah. Well, it's all a one-man band over here. Oh.
But that's all I have is Nick. He's 4. He doesn't seem to know. Here, press the button, Nick.
So cute. Now that's your dog you got from the rescue, right?
Yeah. He was supposed to just be a foster, but you know how that goes, right?
Yeah. You fall in love. How can you get rid of that cute little guy?
Well, I've fostered many times before, but what happens is they're not injured. In the past, the dogs weren't injured. And so they're immediately up on the website of the rescue. And then this Saturday, they're going to the pet store where people are going to see them. And then this guy had a back injury, so it was going to take 2 months of recovery. So by the time, 2 or 3 months passed and his back was finally, in order and he was able to walk and whatnot, he had already wormed his way in. So
cool. I hear the growling. Hey, he's a kitty.
Yeah. What do you think? What do you think about these computer screens that freeze? Growl if you don't like them.
He's adorable. That's so cool that you did a rescue. I love that.
Oh, it was, I've got, you know me, we talked about this before. I've got all those injuries from football and snowboarding. And so my back is screwed up. I'm getting yet another MRI this Thursday. So
no.
Yeah, I couldn't. So I couldn't, when I saw this guy on YouTube on some, excuse me, what was it, Facebook on some feed, He was like 48 hours from execution because
Oh no.
he had a back injury, and the shelter, the county doesn't have the money to deal with it, and so
Right.
I just couldn't bear to look at a poor guy with a back injury, right?
Yeah.
And so I,
Too close to home.
I knew he
I'm
was
sorry,
really.
Johnny Steele. You have a back injury. Your time here is limited.
Yeah, that's it. Get out. Wait, what? I'm surrounded by
Yeah.
tough dogs. So it was impossible to leave him in there, and I could see the look on his face. And they said if someone takes him for a couple odd months, we'll, get at the back looked at. I think he had a slip disc or something around L12. So I
Right.
think they put some steroids in there and the muscle relaxers, and then there he is, mooching his way. Hello, say hi.
And now he's got a home. A
Yeah,
home where someone understands back pain. So that's
yeah,
nice.
exactly. So
Right?
that's the thing. Maybe if they give him extra pain meds, why? Maybe a few of them fell into my drink.
Let's hope not.
Yeah.
So what do you got going on, Johnny Steele? You got the MRI coming up.
What do I
I'm
have? Oh,
sure
the MRI. Yeah, that's not exactly.
it's not a show, but it might be.
It might be if I can get up and down from the stage without being in pain. That's a funny thing, You don't think about these things comedy wise when you're younger, but like when your back is hurting, it not only doesn't make you happy,
Right.
so you're not as fun, but also you can't. Me, I move a lot, and so I'll be very happy when they get to the bottom of this back injury of my own, and then maybe someone will rescue me and I could live at their house for 3 months, and they'll cook meals. But so hopefully that will show what we already think it knows is a couple of compressed discs, and hopefully they'll squirt them full of magic juice and I'll be back at it. But
Oh, we like that. Trevor says you should tell a long story so I can go back out and come back in.
okay, I'll tell that long story.
Actually, it only takes about 3 seconds. So you go ahead and tell a story. I'll be right back.
All right, tell a story. I'll tell a story about the time I ran into Kim at a hospital in Sacramento, where I was actually working at the Punchline in Sacramento, and half the reason I worked at the Punchline in Sacramento was I lived in San Francisco, and it was a long way to the ski resorts from there. And I thought, well, why don't I get booked as much as I can in the winter at the Sacramento Punchline, and then I will be able to sneak up and go snowboarding in the daytime. See, a lot of comics think about how can I get to LA and get rich and famous? I think about where can I snowboard? So I'm working in places like Sun Valley and,
Yeah.
Sacramento and Tahoe. So I was snowboarding and I took a tumble, and it wasn't my first tumble, but I took a tumble, and like an idiot, I just kept snowboarding all day because I'm an idiot. And then by the time that we got about halfway down the hill with some friends, they sort of noticed that I had a broken arm and a broken foot.
Ooh.
So I'm wheeled into the emergency room, and then all of a sudden I'm already kind of dazed because I think we had some whiskey somewhere, and I took a couple shots, and somebody had a pain pill, and I took that, and then all of a sudden Kim McAllister is like there, and I'd known Kim from Quad 106 in Sacramento.
Yeah.
And so all of a sudden it was this disturbing thing where I was like, oh, wait a minute, what are you doing? Am I having a weird dream? Did I ski into a tree?
Nope. It's
No,
called
but you were
radio doesn't
bringing
pay very much, and so you have to have multiple jobs, right? That's what it is.
Yes, exactly. So yeah, that was a weird thing. I remember just being they weren't severe injuries. They were both, I think. Well, the foot was messed up, but the arm was just a fracture. But I remember just going, wait a minute, what?
I wonder if you actually can have an MRI. I mean, is there so much metal? Do you have metal in your body where like they have to worry about it?
Yeah, titanium, I guess. I don't. So I tore my bicep a couple years ago.
Yeah,
And
I
on
heard that
stage-
story.
Yeah,
Ooh.
on stage. And it's an old injury, I'm sure, an old micro
Yeah.
tear. And I just grabbed something on stage and yanked on it, and I ripped my arm up. But they say that doesn't bother it. I don't know if it's because titanium doesn't bother it or there's not enough. I don't
Right.
know. But what's the problem with MRI is, I'm an ex big old football jock. I'm like 6'3", 230. Have you been in an MRI? Oh my God.
Yeah.
It's this big. See, where's the camera? It's this big. That's how
Do you
much.
do you have a problem with the small spaces?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, part of it is that that you're in there for so long. I mean, for whatever reason, it's going to take 25 or 30 minutes. And so that's part of it. And then if you don't look, I guess, but if you open your eyes, the ceiling is, that thing is right above. And then they start closing it in. Once you get in to keep you perfectly still, they close the sides in. So you're, yeah,
You're in.
you're
You're
in.
locked
And it's
in.
like, and I might be fine for 3 or 5 minutes, but 25. So I hate to say, I was what they call a foster fail with the dog, but I was an MRI fail. And apparently, like 30% of people who get in those things, I hear it's mostly men and mostly bigger guys, fail. And so they're losing. The medical industry is losing millions of dollars a year. So they've gone to this
Yeah.
new donut. They call it open. It looks like a donut.
Right.
And they moved that. Unfortunately, my local hospital doesn't have that. So instead,
Oh,
lucky me, they're prescribing like knockout meds. So I'm going to be in there slurring and singing Jim Morrison songs when they throw me on the table on Thursday night. So yeah, it's terribly tight. And I'm somewhat claustrophobic, but I thought close my eyes. I do yoga a little bit, breathe in through the nose, out through the mouth. Imagine yourself at a beach. No, you can't do that. You're in like
yes.
an electronic
Hawaii.
casket.
You're in Hawaii. You're not really where you are, right?
Yeah. And you can try that. And then if people who don't have claustrophobia, let me explain. You're doing this. Inhale, hold it, exhale, hold it. I'm at a beach floating on a surfboard in the bay. And then there's another voice overriding that going, get out! You're trapped! You're suffocating! You're going to be crushed! I'm not kidding. There's a voice yelling. And I think I'm smart enough to be able to overcome that, or more mindful, or whatever it is. But no, I can't. It was so and the cool thing is, at least they put me in for Nick's a watchdog too. They know they can look at me and go, this idiot's gonna bail. So they put me in and go, you're going to be in for 30 minutes. So let's put you in for like a minute and see how you do, because we don't want to start it and start the whole process. And you have to pay for it and everything else. So they put me in and I was in there. I think I'm okay. This is kind of tight though. Let me out. They give you a thing to squeeze, right? And I was just squeezing. So fingers crossed for this weekend. Apparently they looked at my chart, and I did an MRI for the torn bicep a few years ago. And I didn't remember, but the pain was so bad at that time. I was on pain meds and some tranquilizers. So they looked at my chart and like, well, you idiot, you were whacked out last time. So we're going to whack you out this time. So
does it mean that we're now old if we're having a conversation about ailments?
Yeah.
Is that what that means? Are we now officially old people? Is that?
Yeah. I went to see a band I liked the other night quite a bit. It's a guy, Bay Area guy, Lee Valensky. One of these, it's what the kids call the kids. He's older than I, but surf, spy, spaghetti western, instrumental. It's all that reverby stuff, almost all instrumental. If you know your guitars, front pickup, muted tone, soft strumming. It's the Goldfinger, and that kind of stuff, and a couple of surf songs, adventures and whatever. And I went in, and one of the guys in the band is very common at our age, has now got hearing aids because they played 5 nights a week in bands. And the drummer was barely able to drum because a month ago, putting out his garbage, he was wheeling his cart. The cart on the driveway hooked on some sort of ridge, and he went over, broke his leg. It's just like, wasn't it not that long ago, band members were jumping off into the audience? And now,
Now you can't even roll out your garbage without an injury.
2 of the 3 guys were, injured or impaired in the band, and the bass player, just luckily just barely has to move 2 fingers here and 2 here, and he wasn't moving, so he was careful. But yeah, it's kind of, what is the story that we're not quite there yet? Now it's mostly bones and injuries, but the old joke is it's when you get old folks get together, it's an organ recital. Have you ever heard that? my kidneys are killing me, whatever. So yeah,
where it says when the music's over, turn out the lights. That's what you should sing in the MRI, right?
That's what. Yeah, exactly. It's worse among my snowboarding and football friends. Of course, everybody's in bad shape. But the thing about those guys is they're usually in decent muscular and cardio shape, but their bodies are crumbling. And then with my other comedy musician friends, they don't have the brain damage we do and whatnot, but they've all lived on cheeseburgers and beer and cigarettes and don't have any idea what happens inside a gymnasium. So they're all having those cardiovascular ailments and whatnot. But
Lori in the conversation saying, I knew when I followed.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, she said, I knew when I followed 2 ladies around Trader Joe's eavesdropping on their conversation about knee replacements. That's when I knew it was over. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's the fun thing too. So they recently x-rayed my back before they did the MRIs. And they said, well, the back isn't great, but there's bad news and worse. We've got a picture of your hips because we were going down to those lower vertebrae. And we don't know anything about hip replacements, but you've got the beginnings of arthritis in both of those. You didn't like jog and squat and lift weights and sprint every day for 20 years, did you? Yeah, I did.
Ugh.
So you know what they got me doing now that's kind of interesting is they've taken me off of all my regular workouts that I used to like. So this is good for material though, right? Although, well, I'll finish that part and then I'll go on about what it's like playing for the kids today. Um, they got me doing hanging. So I basically go to the gym with these gloves and these foam pads and everything else. And I basically am hanging as long as I can, like 7 sets or 8 sets of as long as you can to try to counterbalance, the compression of the spine and decompress
Oh,
it.
okay.
Yeah, but no, I used to do a lot of heavy bag boxing, none of that, no jogging, no load bearing weights. So it's ridiculous. Now I'm doing this whole
Stretch out
other,
your body.
yeah, it's interesting that some studies have shown that people have gained like a half an inch because we crouch down so much. If you just hang and you twist while you're hanging, you could put a hanger. And it's funny because I thought I was in decent shape. I work out, exercise, but try to hang on a bar and see how long you can hang. And
I probably couldn't hang.
Yeah,
Is it arm strength or like your shoulders feel tired after a while, or what's the first to give?
Everything. Your hope, your will to live is the first thing to give. Your forearms.
They do that in Survivor. Have you seen that on the Survivor Challenge? Where it's all about your arm strength. You have to stay there holding onto a bar or something. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the irony is we held on. We visited many bars in our youth. Now we're paying. So that's one of the jokes. The other joke is, and the MR, the kids can't get any of these jokes. The joke was about my screwed up back on stage, and I basically say, it's funny how life changes. When I was high school, all I wanted to do was play at Stanford. Now all I want to do is not walk like Fred Sanford. And this joke worked for off and on for 15 years. Now this whole group of millennials. So the problem, as a guy who knows a lot about humor, problem one, they don't know the reference. That's a problem. And then problem two, they can't empathize. They have no idea what sciatica or back pain is. They're 22 years old. Their grandparents are like our age, maybe.
Right.
So yeah. So you write the good humor, but it only works at the Del Webb 55 and up communities in Rockland and Roseville. It doesn't necessarily work Sunday night at the Punchline.
But I love the thought of you just hanging around every day on a bar. It's like, Johnny, there's Johnny. He's hanging. How many minutes can you go?
It's funny. When I first started hanging, I thought I'll kick ass at this because I did lat pull downs, things like that. This is different. It's just everything is just ripping and stretching. So I marched in the gym all full of bravado and whatnot. I'm going to hang forever. Well, I got a bunch of broken, dislocated old finger injuries on my right hand. On the left arm, right here, they reattach the tendon that they tore off by drilling a hole in the radius and dragging it through. So everything you once injured starts hurting, and then you realize. I've realized this with bicycling. A body that helps you be a decent defensive end or outside linebacker in college football is not a body that gets up to the top of Grizzly Peak on a bicycle real good or hangs. Meanwhile, there's some 18-year-old kid who weighs about 138 pounds swinging on the bar next to me. There's a couple times I used to go up to Spruce Street, which is near the University of California, near my house in Berkeley, and then go diagonally up to the top of Grizzly Peak and Wildcat Canyon. And a couple of times you hear on your left, and then here goes by like 12 people, like the Cal women's cycling team. They went by. I wondered why their motorcycles were so quiet. No, they were on bicycles going like 5 times faster. So I actually, this is the first time I've admitted this out loud. I tried to figure out when they took that ride and made sure that I was never on that road when they came by. Because it's just the humiliation.
It's really a confidence killer. Yeah.
Of having, 12 people, they're half our age, but 12 people blow by you at 3 times your speed. And then the whole time you're on that hill, you're like, okay, I think this next turn is the top, right? Oh, crap. No, that's just the park. Then the next one, oh, maybe I should turn left on this Los Angeles street here. No one will know. No, I'll just fight it up. I'm okay. I'll loop around and pretend I'm trying to fumble. I do this fumble for my water bottle. Just make 2 loops on a side street. And then meanwhile, so, yeah.
You're like, there's that old guy trying to pretend again. We know.
What is it? Old age ain't for sissies or something. There's some like, not that we're at old age yet, but yeah. But that's been an eye opener. Will Durst had a great line I really liked where he talked about some infirmities and whatnot. And he'd say, I forget, whatever age he'd say, I'm 65. I guess that's not really old, but it's the oldest I've ever been, which is a great line. And so Yeah, it's weird being this age because I still, think I want to go snowboarding. I still think I want to go maybe, say see the kids kite sailing in the water, and I think, well,
Right.
maybe I'll try. And then so that's one problem. No, you shouldn't do that. And then the other
Right.
thing is, you know, it's hard to imagine this, but there are kids in the audience, and even people who've opened for me, warm up acts for me, who are 20 or 21 or 20 or even 18 in some cases. Well, they're one
Right.
third, they're 40 years younger. 40 years. So we had gone to high school, gone to college, spent 15, 20, 18 more years screwing around, performing, travel around the country. They weren't born yet, And when you think about stuff that for us is completely normal, including, say, not normal, I mean horrible, but 911. I mean, they were
Yeah.
born after 911 or at a place where they were so young they can't remember it. So what to us is kind of normal. You should never throw out a Gilligan's Island reference or an 8-track tape. They don't know infirmities. They don't have historical base. It's a very interesting age to be performing. And I know a lot about comedy to know how that's done. You just don't put references that they can't, that they're not familiar with in. But it's hard
Sure.
because your life isn't, you go to your friend's house and he
Yeah.
does have records, and you go to your other friend's house and he does have sciatica. So you want to work these things into your act, but you realize not a good idea if you want to.
So you're talking about when people were born, and I guess it's a sign of aging when you realize someone was born in 1990 something, and then I'm doing the math to figure out, like, oh yeah, I had already graduated from high school by the time these people were born.
Yeah,
Oh, this, and then and so now it's like I base who they are, like, not who they are, but my age, or where we are in the world, with how long I had been out of high school, or how long I had been doing something by the time these people were born. It's just crazy that they're now grown-ups.
well, being a womanly person, you may not know this next thing, which is very similar to what you're saying. Is as a young boy, you get your first peek of a Playboy magazine, and you're 12 or 14, and you go, "Oh my God, those old women are so beautiful. Those older 19." And then, and then you're the same age as they are. And then you blink twice and you look at, you look, I mean, I don't even think they have centerfolds anymore, but you look at the Playboy magazine at one point and you think, oh my God, she was born 3 years after I graduated high school. And then the same thing happens with football. You're a kid and you think, man, when I'm 23, I'm going to be that big and strong. And then you are 23. And then all of a sudden you're like, there's nobody playing college football your age. Then there's nobody playing pro football. Then there's nobody coaching football
Yeah.
your age anymore. And oh man, it's weird. But hey, it's a good time to be this age though, because when I was a
Yeah.
kid, people were keeling over from heart attacks at like 43, and there was no
Right.
diagnostics, and we didn't know how to eat and whatnot. And this is an interesting, and in fact, the woman who played Aunt B, the actress who played Aunt B on the Andy Griffith Show, who our age doesn't,
Yeah.
she played it from like age, I think she was like age 56 to 63 or something. So Aunt B is our age or younger. Aunt B, she was, she had that house dress and she had that mid-Atlantic.
She looked ancient.
She looked ancient. And
She was our age? Is that what we were saying? She was our age.
I believe she was something like 55 to like 63, roughly, give or take a year, when she played Aunt B. So there was a point when she was younger. I'm not sure exactly her age, but there's just a couple years younger than I am now. And she just seemed, I mean, Andy seemed old. We were somewhere
Yeah.
between me and Andy. And now it's just, this woman, ooh, Andy. Yeah. Now she's roughly the age of many of the women I'm dating, so.
I'm
So,
gonna say that she had really good range. She was an excellent actress. That's what
sure.
I'm gonna say.
Well, that is a good answer too, because a lot of folks, being half Italian, I'm Sicilian and Italian on my mom's side. You had to watch The Godfather 300 times and read it 10 times and know everything about it. But a lot of folks don't know. I think Brando was like 45 when he played Don Corleone, but he had to cover like a long period of. So he had to go from like whatever he was as a younger guy to like 65. But when you look at him in those
Sure.
older scenes, you never imagine he was like 44 or 45 when he did
No.
it. But it's a different time. Everybody I know is getting a dermabrase this and a zap here and a lift there, and we know about how to eat a little better. I grew up in the Delta, halfway between Sacramento and here being the Bay Area, up in the Pittsburgh, Antioch area. And first I water skied and played football forever. Then I windsurfed. And at one point I went to the doctor and they said, you know what? Even though you're Sicilian and Spanish and Italian, you might want to get the hell out of the sun. So I at least
Yeah.
haven't stared at the sun for the last 30 years. So I've saved my skin a little bit. People are like, well, your skin is great. Yeah. You look really young. And my joke is, well, you haven't seen my MRI. Look at my
Well, next
spine.
time you come back on the show, you need to bring the film so we can see exactly how bad it looks in there.
I know. Well, as a joke, there's a scoliosis thing where from the bottom of my chin to like my belly button, it looks like the road to Crockett, or Rodent, wherever, from both angles. And then the discs, which are at one point sat like this, like maybe I'd say like soup bowls in a cafe with a little gummy bear between. Now they're like this at different odd angles.
Oh,
And yeah, it looks like, I don't know what, it looks like ruins in Greece somewhere. But
no.
I'm hanging. What are you going to do? Got a bar at home. And when people say, what are you doing? I'm hanging. You're right. I'm hanging around. It's good
I'm
for
at the
you.
bar. I'm hanging around. That's right.
I
So,
recommend
question.
go on YouTube.
Question.
And it's funny how things exist and we don't even really know they exist, right? Um,
Right.
Go on YouTube and just put hanging, dead weight hanging. There's literally 150 videos from doctors to physical therapists to chiropractors to people who had back injuries who swear by it. There are people who do it upside down. There's a couple of slings you crawl in, and I've already got like 9 concussions, migraines. I don't need to be hanging upside down all day, but
No,
yeah.
but
So
although Lori in the audience said she has one of those tables, those inversion tables, I
inversion,
think. Yeah, where I think, then there's less risk of you bonking your head, right?
yes, yeah, that's probably the safest way to do inverted. But what I do like about the hanging is, both rotator cuffs are mangled. Both that's shoulders for people who are
Ugh.
under 35 are mangled, and this, I mean, it's just a great stretching and strength building exercise. And I play a lot
Right.
of guitar, as you always can see, which
Yay.
there's guitars pretty much everywhere in my house.
Oh, it's a
So
guitar. It's like a guitar store in there.
it is. I think I may have mentioned to you in the past. I've got a lot of friends, from Jason, who plays the lead guitar in the tour band for Green Day, to Jeff Capitelli's a really good buddy. He was Joe Satriani's drummer for like 30 years. And so I asked a lot of these guys, how do you get better faster? I played a bit as a kid, but I had a lapse in there due to broken fingers and whatnot. So,
Right.
and a couple of them had a great piece of advice. Try different guitars. And I said, well, how do you do that? Because you go to the shop and it's hard. They said, buy one that you can sell later for the same price. And so you're basically renting it. And how do you know if you're a Fender guy or you're Gibson? How do you know if you're Martin or a Taylor? So they said, buy guitars, at least at a price, secondhand, at a price where you can turn around and sell them. So I did that, except I forgot the sell them part. So I forgot the part where you bring them in and try them for a year. And if they speak to you, you keep them. If they don't speak to you or they're redundant, you get rid of them. And I mostly forgot the get rid of them part. So yeah,
Oh, that's all right. Sometimes they're all like old girlfriends, right?
they are. A friend of mine who was a writer for everybody from SNL to whatever said, because he had a lot of guitars, he said you could blindfold him and you can hand him a guitar and he could, sometimes without even strumming it, he could tell you which one it was, just because they
Oh.
are so different. And at the time, I thought he was nuts, but now I totally agree. And so, and when you think about it, unless you're buying, $5,000 guitars, which I'm absolutely not,
Yeah.
it's not that expensive a hobby. They don't need insurance. Well, a couple of them have insurance. They don't need registration. They don't need gas. I've learned how to do most of the maintenance on them. So, when you think about it, it's about as much as I spent in 3 years of snowboarding. I mean, have you been up snowboarding now? The lift tickets are $100
Crazy.
or $300. So, yeah. So it's a cheap hobby. But, Bo, how did this start? Well, partly you bend over the guitar, and if you play a couple of hours a day, the next thing you know, the only
You're
roll you're
back.
going to get is the hunchback. So
Yeah.
so this hanging, there's eventually an end to my story if I can follow the breadcrumb. The hanging really it counteracts that, and really when you get, it's like yoga. I don't know if you do yoga. I hate doing yoga, but when I'm done with yoga, I feel so much better. I feel floaty and
Yeah.
light,
The
and my
stretching.
back
Mhm.
hurts less. I just hate doing it. And the same is true of hanging. When I'm done hanging, I just get off and I just feel taller and my posture is better. Maybe I should hang a bar over the stage. Wonder if that would work. Maybe. All right,
There
I'm
you
gonna work on
go.
that. You know what? To young comics out there, the hardest thing is finding your voice and your point of view and having a distinct angle that nobody else has. And I don't think anybody's doing the bar hanging comic yet. So that's my angle.
No
I
one's
think.
doing that. So you
Nobody's
love music, you love comedy, you're kind of a guy of the arts. I wonder, are you a musical theater person at all? Do you like to go see plays?
Well, here's a funny thing. I never did much acting. I never was in theater. And a lovely gentleman named Robin Williams and I used to hang out a little bit. And um, and he said one time to me, "Have you done much acting? It seems to me you'd be a great actor." And I said, "No." And he said, "You should." And I said, "Well, how could I? There's almost nothing here." I mean, I've been in a couple of commercials. I was a Cash Creek guy for like 5 years. Remember that? I was in like 12 Cash Creek ads. I was a spokesman. Sounds like a winner and that kind of crazy crap.
Yeah.
And I think I've done a couple of small roles and one in a network TV show. I was on NBC and all that. But he said, "No, get in a play." And I said, "Really? Like what? Long Day's Journey in the Night?" I said, "No, get in a musical." I'm like, "What? No,
Yeah.
me? No." And so after he passed, the Throckmorton Theater, believe it or not, it'll be 9 years in August that we lost Robin. Nine
Yeah.
years in August. After he passed, the Throckmorton Theater that year, next summer, was doing a play. And one of the direct, and it's a really good program. The Throckmorton has a really good theater program. And the director saw me doing stand up and he called me and said, "I want you to audition for a role." And I said, "What? In a musical?" I said, "I can't do a musical. I play a little guitar, but it's mostly Tom Waits. I'm working with Kimberly in the operating room in Sacramento," whatever. So he says, "No, no, no, you're a total actor. You'd be great." And I said, "What?" I said, "What is it? A musical?" He said, "Yeah, I'd like to sing." He goes, "Oh, yeah, you got a big number to start the second half." I'm like, "What? No." He goes, "Yeah, but you're going to be a comic. You're the comic relief guy. So you can sing it in any weird, funny voice you can come up with." And I'm like, "What kind of musical is it?" He goes, "Disney." I'm like, "I don't have kids. I don't know. What is it?" He said, "The Little Mermaid." I said, "I don't know nothing about mermaids, big, little, or otherwise. I'm not doing it." So I went in and I auditioned it and they loved me. And I played, God, what was the guy's name? He was like a pawn shop. So I had him talk like this, see? And everything was like
Sebastian?
this. Pardon?
Were you Sebastian?
No, that was a crab.
The crab or
Scuttle?
the lobster?
Scuttle or something, his name.
Oh, Scuttle. Yeah, the bird. You were the bird.
It's like a pawn shop bird.
Yeah.
And so I just said, "I'm going to sing like this." And it was a great experience because it's a great program. And so the guy who's the director, Steven, he's got theater training, went to college and studied, fine arts. And so he's saying, like, "How would you deliver these lines?" And I deliver them in my normal manic way. And he's like, "No, keep your feet planted and try delivering them again." I deliver them again. And he's like, "Try to like just from the shoulders up." And boy, it was a great eye opener because instead of being manic and big and crazy and all over the place, it was that song. "You look at me and see this face. In times of beauty, I'm a basket case. But as for style in sad warfare, well, I guess there ain't a whole lot there." So, so it was a really fun experience.
That's awesome. You're
One of my
good.
greatest. It was, and his theater, and it was like Robin. That was Robin's home room, and so just being in there doing a play after he suggested I did a play was kind of a very sort of, I don't know, very moving and surreal. Like you
Yeah.
couldn't. We had been in that theater with Robin so many times, and he had only passed away like 9 months earlier because we started in I think June for the workouts, the rehearsals. And it was hard not to imagine Robin in that Throckmorton Theater while we were rehearsing and there, him being an
Yeah.
actor and us having shared the stage so much. But my greatest memory from that is this. I was the only guy in the play because all the other actors, so you've got the lead actors, and those are all professional actors. Next week, they're at the Lucky Penny doing next month doing a show in Napa. Next
Right.
week, they're at Berkeley. So these are actors, and they've been acting since they were in the 5th grade. I'm the only guy who's not an actor and not doing another play after this. And and then the other part is kids. It's kids who are doing workshops at the theater.
Yeah.
And by kids, I mean under 13. They play like sea anemones and whatnot. It was beautiful. They got these umbrellas, these bell-shaped clear umbrellas with lights in them, and they're playing jelly. It was really beautiful. And
Yeah.
and an orchestra. I mean, I'm not screwing around these people, But here's I buried the lead on the thing. So I'm the only one that doesn't know nothing about nothing. And the very first night that you have to perform without your script is called the off-book night. And I'm like petrified because I don't, no, I don't know where I'm supposed to be, what I'm supposed to do. So it's funny because I do a line. I go, "Ariel, the problem with line, please." Could you just call out real line real quick? And then a chorus of like 11-year-olds would yell the line out from the wings
Oh,
and the back. Everybody in the room, including the young children and the teens, all knew every line. And it was just kind of
yep.
funny to yell out crap line, and they did blah blah blah, and I'd go Ariel, you know. So
These
yeah,
theater
that was
kids, I have one of those. They know it. You know, they are when they
they
say
know it.
off book, they know they need to be off book. And if you're not off book, you probably won't get a part in the next production in community theater.
Yeah,
So they
which
take it very, very seriously. Yeah.
yeah, they were, and you know, I read recently that I forget the age, but maybe it's 7. At which point, for whatever reason, their minds are so sponge-like or malleable that that's the best time for them to learn music,
Yeah.
another language, you know, and
Right.
things like that. And so they were great. They were great, and they were just so supportive. And so it was a lot of fun. I will never do it again because it's 6 weeks of rehearsal, six
It's a
weeks,
lot.
and then we
Yeah.
did and then we did 3 weeks of, I think, Thursday through Sunday sold out. And you know, the only thing, here's the
Wow.
greatest thing. The only thing that made me not nervous, really, because I was often nervous, because the whole second half of the play starts with this character, Scuttle. End of the
Yeah.
first half, Ariel sold her voice to get legs so she can go up and chase the sailor boy. Everyone's worried. It's a big mistake. What are you doing? And so the second half opens with Ariel, you know, they're all defeated and she's made a big mistake and, you know, her life is over. And this character, Scuttle, has to come out and bring up the show. So it was nerve wracking for me. The whole
Yeah.
the whole halftime, everyone's having fun. I'm scared crapless because I'm like, oh my God. And the kids are nervous. And the audience, the youngsters are nervous. And so my guy comes out, he does some lines with her, he sings a song, they do a dance routine, and that's that Positivity song. You know, you got to have positivity with the same man as him and a lot, you know. So, so it's a really, but what made it easy for me, end of the story. Well, you ask a question, you get a 4-minute answer if you're lucky.
It's okay. It's okay.
All right. Well, here's the end of the Scuttle story. One night when I came out and started to do the line, I was nervous. I looked, and half the audience is children. Hey, I could do 3 stanzas in Pig Latin, and they'd certainly know because they know the play, but they probably think it's cool or they wouldn't care. They're looking at this
Yeah.
spectacle of sea anemones, and they think they're looking at an undersea world with mermaids and talking lobsters. It's not going to be a big deal if I juxtapose a couple of lines and have to scat one line, you know, scuba dabba dooba da dee, because I forgot the exact line. So yeah, it was different than performing for, you know, an audience at a late show, you know,
So
in Detroit. And
you mentioned
comedy.
Robin Williams when you were talking there. And I remember the day he passed away, I was on the story for KGO. They, you know, they sent me out. They wanted me to interview people, talk to people. And I called you because I knew you two were friends. And you said, I just can't talk to you right now, which I completely understood.
Oh,
But I mean, as far as the deaths of celebrities go, I think we all have those people that, you know, we may never have met them, but their work was so moved us so much or was so important to us. They made us laugh, they made us feel. In the case of Robin Williams, I don't think I've ever been more affected by a death that of someone I didn't know than his. And
yeah.
so I wonder though, you actually knew him and were friends with him and he was your buddy. And so in that case, when you have the whole world mourning, does it feel weird to have all these people so sad over someone they don't know? What's that experience like?
Yeah, it was weird. I mean, usually, you know, when you had that horrible experience of you have to put your pet down or you lose a parent or something or an aunt and uncle. I mean, the whole world doesn't know that and they don't have that
Yeah.
experience. But everywhere you go after Robin's death, I mean, there was that thing where, like, I think it was a week later at noon, everybody had like whatever it was, 60 seconds of applause and laughter. And
Yeah.
interestingly enough, I found myself in the Berkeley Hills on the bike he built, a custom bike he built for me as a gift at the top of Marin Street where I could see his house. It was a really weird, surreal experience. I didn't necessarily plan that, but I drove by Marin Street and I was not going to participate in that laugh thing, but people were supposed to come out of buildings and I think it was applaud and laugh for 60
Yeah.
seconds and not. And I could hear people came out of their houses and their porches in the Berkeley Hills and clapped and laughed. So
Yeah.
it was weird. It was really strange. And it was also, and I'm sorry I didn't talk to you. I should have, but I was
No,
trying to
you have your
figure.
moment. It was new and fresh and you were so sad. Yeah.
Yeah, I was very. Um, it, partly because he's such a great, I mean, it rocks your world. I mean, first of all, if Robin Williams isn't safe, who's safe from any, he's this
Yeah.
wealthy, beloved guy who gives so much. You think about, is there such a thing as karma? Because it doesn't seem like it. Is there any fairness to the world? I mean, not that anybody, I mean, I'm sure some poor person has a young child who gets leukemia, how horrible and awful that, but it threw me in a million different ways. And it was also like stuff like, I didn't go to LA when I should have.
Yeah.
I had management and they said, get down here. You're in your 30s. You're really running out of time. And I didn't, because I love the Bay Area comedy scene back then. It's changed quite
Yeah.
a bit now. The clubs are all corporate owned and it's not the scene it was once. But at that time, it was great. And Robin chose to live here. He went to LA or on site to make his films or his TV shows, but he got back up here as soon as he could. And he ran to the Throckmorton or wherever and did comedy sets. And so it sort of really told us that this was, business wise, some of us made a mistake in not going to LA, but quality of life and quality of comedy audiences, Northern California, and it was a great place and a great time. So it kind of reaffirmed that thought that we had, that this was a great place to be a good comic. And it made us feel a little less bad about having squandered our important years down there. And then when he passed, he passed. And not long after, Dana Carvey, who also lived in Marin, moved to LA because he felt, I think, that he was getting a little older and needed to go down there and take charge before it was too late, because it's a very ageist town and a very ageist business.
Sure.
And almost within like a year, it just sort of seemed like the air got let out. And the Throckmorton's doing well again and they've got shows. But, so it was his loss, how kind he was. We saw this stuff coming a little bit. We saw him not being well, obviously, but we didn't know what. In the film world and TV world maybe, but mostly film, you don't really share an illness because someone won't necessarily put you in a film because the film can cost $100 million to make.
No, you don't say
they're
that.
Not sure. Yeah. So
especially if you don't have any symptoms yet, right? I mean, you're still in performing shape. So why would you say anything?
At least if you could pull it together during the time you had to do your work, sure. So we knew he wasn't well. We thought it was psychological. I didn't know what it was. I mean, right before he passed, after he did the last season of The Crazy Ones, he went to Minneapolis, was it, Minnesota, somewhere where he had sort of a rehab house that he went to because he was just trying to focus and get straight and whatever. But, it was hard not to imagine that maybe he'd fallen off the wagon. I didn't see any signs of it. We thought that. But what was happening was, and I always take this opportunity to tell people, he had a form of dementia called Lewy body. And if you are a computer or whatever, have a pencil and paper, if you're older, scribble down Robin's Wish. And it's a documentary that a friend of mine from Marin and Susan spearheaded to tell the world about what was going on in Robin's brain. It's a form of dementia that you can't diagnose except in an autopsy, although it does kind of seem to affect people who have Parkinson's. So I wonder if they were suspecting at the time. So he was having all sorts of delusions and all sorts of other things that were happening in his head. He was not in charge of his brain. And if you could probably find clips of it on YouTube, but you could probably find the movie Robin's Wish. I'm actually in there talking about, I took the last bike ride with him that he ever took, and he was really out of it and acting very strange on that day. Yeah, there you go. Yeah. And so, we didn't really know at first. I didn't know. We didn't. And there were a few people on the inside that knew about the Parkinson's, and there were some of us on the outside that saw a little tremor, you would see him shaking a little bit in the fingers. And the last bike ride, which happened about a week before he passed, we were supposed to ride on Monday or Tuesday of that week. And he passed on Sunday night, late, really, actually Monday morning. And on the last ride we took, I talk about it in that documentary, I think, he was not the same guy. He was just not. He was asking the same questions over and over. He was paranoid. He felt he had to get home, that something was happening at home.
Yeah.
No, Robin, Susan's home or painting, or she went shopping, or everything's fine. And it was one of the first times ever that when we got back after the ride, he would say boss all the time. Hey, boss, I'm really exhausted. I'm going to take a shower and see if I can nap. And I said, you didn't have good sleep last night? And he said, oh, last night and the night before. And I said, when's the last time you had a full night's sleep of like 6 hours or more? He said, 3 or 4 days is what he said. So he hadn't actually slept at all for days and was just really weird. So So then when the news came in, it all became so obvious. And then my
Yeah.
friend Dan found him, which is just, Dan is such a sweet, sensitive, loving, talented guy. He started with Bobcat Goldthwait and Tom Kenny in a comedy troupe out of New York and back in the 80s. And, he found Robin because Robin wasn't answering the door and he was supposed to be home and a FedEx package or something arrived. So it's
Yeah.
just everything about it was just, and Susan and he had only been married maybe 2.5, 3 years. And there's this fairy
Mm.
tale wedding. And I was lucky enough to be invited to the wedding, Meadowood, and between Calistoga and St. Helena. And there's this lovely, incredible wedding where you're sitting with the Monty Python guys and, Billy Crystal and Mark Pitta and I and Stephen Pearl were some of the local comics there. And it's just this thing that started at like noon and on until midnight, and from one place to another. And
What a time.
And they were so in
Yeah.
love. And he would just give her a big old hug and a kiss before the ride and a hug and a kiss after. And it was just, I remember my wife, who now is living in Portugal. She didn't want to sit around for the COVID shutdown, so she went to Portugal and decided, I'm going to stroll the streets of Portugal during the COVID. But I remember the first thing she said was just, she had talked to Susan, and Susan, I don't want to say something out of line here, but Susan said something. The first year was something to the effect of, just absolute fairy tale magic, the greatest love affair you can possibly imagine. The second year, what's happening? And then into the third year, just kind of a nightmare where Robin was just not well and they didn't know why. So
Yeah.
Terrible. It was a crush. Just this, like, is there no rhyme or reason in the world? Why do convicts run free? And the sweetest, nicest guy who's only a couple odd years into a marriage with a woman he's madly in love with and has kids. And I mean, the guy.
You're breaking out a little bit.
To your question, I don't know. There's some empathy. I mean, when everybody else is feeling the same sadness, there's something in that's, therapeutic, I guess. But it was also weird. Like the whole world had suddenly just taken a meteor hit of some sort that we didn't want and didn't deserve. Weird.
But how amazing to have that much impact on people where you pass away and everyone's affected, right? Where everyone feels it.
Yeah.
So.
He was so kind. He would go out of your way. And when on the bike ride, on an average of like 3 times in the bike ride, he would turn around. How's that pace, boss? That pace okay? He was always concerned about how other people were doing and were they doing okay. I saw him open his wallet before many times and hand out. I mean, there was a story once, a comic at the Throckmorton was sort of down. And I think Robin said, why is he so down? He said, he just thought he was going to have this gig, but the gig got canceled. So his daughter is graduating high school up in Portland, and he just doesn't have the money to get up there and buy her the gift. And the next thing you know, it's Robin. Oh, it's terrible. Next thing you know, I think Robin's snuck off to the ATM or something. And the next thing.
You're frozen in time, just like I was frozen in time, Johnny Steele. But we get it. I understand what you're trying to say, that Robin Williams was kind and generous and an amazing spirit. And I'm, Jim Liu, I agree with you. Jim Liu says, thank you for sharing about Robin. I'm crying and smiling. And I think he really affected us all. Oh, there you are. I see you. You're in and out.
Hey, West, right? Where?
I can hardly hear you, Johnny Steele. But I had you for quite a while. I'm so fortunate that you would come on the show today. And thank you for sharing those memories. What stories you have to tell. We hope the MRI goes well for you and that you're okay and that they figure out what's wrong and get you all healthy again. And I adore you. Thank you for coming on with me. You're just the best.
Calls coming in. It's cutting you off.
Oh, is that what's happening? Go away, people. No, but thank you, Johnny. I appreciate you coming on. Thanks very much. I'll see you soon. We'll do it again. Okay, bye. I don't know if you heard me. Bye. So that's Johnny Steele. He is a comedian. We didn't get to the point where I could ask him what upcoming shows he's got going on. Is he there? Let's put him back. Johnny, do you have shows coming up? Can I hear you still?
Are you there again? Yeah, it's a lot of calls coming in.
Yeah.
That might be it.
I wanted to ask you about upcoming I wanted to ask you about upcoming shows.
Yeah, go to my website. I was had a bang up December, January, February, and all of a sudden realized I didn't book much for April. But yeah, wineries. I'm all over the place doing wineries. There's a place called Wise Girl in Pleasant Hill that's actually a music venue, and I like music, so I go there a lot. And they said, why don't you produce a summer series? So I'm doing that. I'm doing comedy workshops, 0 to funny in 6 weeks. I get about 10 or 12 students. By the end of 6 weeks, we do an actual show. Everybody performs 3 minutes of original material in front of a small live audience. That's going to be happening, I think, in May, one in Marin and one in Contra Costa. So my website should have all of that stuff on there very soon. Thank you.
And the website is what, johnnysteele.com?
Correct.
Excellent. I'm glad to hear it. Well, thank you for spending time with me, Johnny Steele of johnnysteele.com fame. Love you. I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. Johnny Steele. So johnnysteele.com, the place to find him as far as his performances. He's so fun. He's really the funnest person and the most kind as well. Speaking of which, of kind people, really, really nice. I want to thank you guys for being here today. If you could take a moment, everybody collectively, if you haven't already, and click the like button. I'm going to put the thing, click the thumbs up. We need your love and support, and that's free. You can also support the show financially if you're so inclined to do so. But honestly, I'm just so glad you're here spending your time with us. That's really the biggest gift to me. But the website is thenikkimadoroshow.com. We've got the Patreon, we've got the PayPal, and of course the YouTube super chat is open right here on the Nikki Maduro Show. Nikki also has the Nikki Maduro shop, so you can get the t-shirt and the bag and all the fun stuff that she's got going on there as well. So thank you for being here. Thank you for all of the comments, all of the amazing conversation. I really appreciate it so much. I don't think I will be taking over the show, Joseph, but I will be filling in maybe here and there as Nikki works part-time, fill in. We all have to do what we have to do and make it work. And, you know, the show is not, let's just say we're not making the same paycheck we were at Station X. So living in the Bay Area is not so cheap, and we all have to try to figure a way out. And we still want to do the show. So you will see Nikki. She will be back. I might be filling in tomorrow. I'm not exactly sure, but we will let you know. We will be here one way or the other to carry on the conversation. Thank you for being here on the Nikki Maduro Show. And we will end it, as we usually do, with Jacob, who's singing the old song. So thank you for being here. We'll see you tomorrow at noon on the Nikki Maduro Show.
Nikki, you're all so awesome. Miss Brown, like a beautiful blossom. You're also the best. I really can't rest. You're all so awesome.
Wow. Okay.